I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Where are our prophets now? Where are those messengers God chooses to communicate divine revelation through? In the past, the Creator has sent prophets like Abraham, Siddhartha, Jesus, Muhammad, and many more. Maybe our higher power has switched tactics since we reinterpret God's words as soon as the Creator's prophets leave us. Could it be that Spirit talks to each one of us individually and we haven't learned to listen? On Words of the Prophets, our modern prophets show us how to find the internal prophet that is the I Am, and we discuss the application of spiritual principles in all aspects of our lives. Love and light, everybody. I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Today, my guests are Rowan, and she's on the far right, who is High Priestess of Our Lady of the Woods, which is an eclectic, I love that word, teaching Wiccan coven in northern New Mexico. And in between us is Amber, who's also priestess and founder of the Ardente, which is a witch college and pagan learning center that is based near Jemez Springs. Today's prophetic topic is a vision of what could be. This topic comes from an article written by our guest Amber entitled Covencraft, Witchcraft for Three or More, which is kind of an interesting title. The paragraph containing the topic reads as follows: Yet another spiritual challenge is to accept responsibility for the future, to have a vision for the world and act to bring it closer to reality. I love that phrase. I lost my spot. Here we are. We can choose to be educators and reformers, building on the foundation of our present culture and improving it. We can be rebels, that's me, and outlaws, attacking the old corruption and injustice from outside society. We can be pioneers, creating new communities as alternative role models for the world. But it all begins with a vision of what could be. So there's multiple paths to transformation and enlightenment. That's what I'm reading into this. Was that the intent?
Well, I think there's room for many visions, as long as there's an overriding ethic that says other visions, as long as they don't harm or destroy ourselves, our environment, our planet, other visions are fine, and people don't have to adopt my vision. There is not one true vision. And the question is, can we all begin with the idea that we respect one another's paths and one another's visions?
I mean, the basic creed of Wicca is do no harm.
Yes, correct.
And I think that's marvelous, and I love it. And I'm going to throw out the question. We were going to start this differently, but we always wind up doing things differently. How does one know coming in, there's some obvious signs that we're going to do some harm. But how do we know if we're engaged in something, and how do we know we're not going to do harm with that?
We can't know. We can't know for certain. All we can do is use our common sense and seek information, seek guidance. To behave ethically, I don't think you act in a vacuum. You give yourself certain basic rules or guidelines. You consult with others in the community, hoping that the wisdom of the village is greater than that of the individual. You talk to your elders and your teachers, and then you make the best choice you can and watch what happens. And if your choice starts to lead towards something that's obviously destructive, then you back away and look for another choice. I mean, it's all life, it's experience. Nobody has a perfect paradigm or ethical guideline that will help them act rightly in every situation. You do the best you can.
There's actually a second part to that statement as well.
Yes.
And ye harm none, do as ye will.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean do anything you want, and it doesn't mean do as you whim, as you just kind of feel like.
Yes.
It means learn your true will and follow it. And that's part of the equation when you're looking into what is right action, what is right livelihood, all of those things.
So let's use that as the segue, and let's talk about, because you used the word choice.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to make the assumption that neither one of you were born into Wicca, so you both made choices and were guided along that path that got you there. You want to talk about yours?
Well, actually, I didn't talk about this before, but public access led me to Wicca. And it's true, since we're on a public access station.
Wouldn't that be great?
Well, what happened is that I was on the board of the public access channel up in Los Alamos, which is, It's Pack 8. That's the name of it. I think it's still the name. And I had said when I signed up that it would be fun to do some shows of my own. So I started doing movie introductions, which was fun, but it's only like 5-minute little clip. And I started thinking about doing at least a half an hour of something, and started doing research and reading things. And the first book that I came across was Drawing Down the Moon by Margot Adler. And that had this huge resource directory in the back. I connected with a group in Albuquerque and went down and talked to them and asked them if they would be open to, some of their members would be open to being interviewed, and some of them would be open to allowing me to videotape a circle. And they were, and they did. And I have to tell you, when I saw that circle, I realized I'd come home. As you point out, I was not raised Wiccan. I had been for many years not affiliated with any spirituality because I didn't find anything that I knew about satisfying particularly, and that I and many people in the pagan community that I've talked to have had that experience.
What is it you found in Wicca that you weren't finding someplace else?
Connection with nature, respect for the feminine, and a fundamental open-mindedness and acceptance and lack of dogmatism. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to find in this conversation that Amber and I held different theological views on a number of subjects, but it doesn't prevent us from working together, because the work is the point, not the theological underpinnings. The work is the point.
And before we get to you, I just wanted, because it's probably showing up on camera, we got a little altar here that we're going to explain and do something with later in the show. I just didn't want people to think we're ignoring it. So you're going to have to watch us, stay present with us, and more will be revealed. Go ahead, you were going to speak.
Well, I was raised 50% Roman Catholic and 50% Episcopalian.
Isn't that a contradiction in terms?
Well, my parents apparently didn't think so, because on alternate Sundays I went to Mass, ordered services, and was equally untouched by either, unfortunately. I know those are tremendously effective spiritual paths for many people. Didn't happen to work for me. So I was lost to the Unitarians for about 12 years, and really enjoyed the open-mindedness there, the fact that they have no dogma. There is really total intellectual freedom in most Unitarian churches. That was great. And while researching ancient religions for a Unitarian curriculum, I came across the goddess and nature spirituality, the idea that the earth might be sacred, the concept that divinity might reveal itself with a number of different faces and names and forms. It wasn't just one image or name. The possibility of magic, the idea that there might be something beyond what modern science understands. All those things are tremendously attractive to me in the ancient religions, and then lo and behold, I found out they're not all dead religions.
Let's define magic. That's a wonderful term. Mm-hmm. And how would you define it?
Well, there's a bunch of definitions. I can refer you to a great book called True Magic, which covers some of them. But one of the most traditional is the art of changing consciousness at will. Now, everybody changes consciousness all the time, depending on the influence of their environment. You know, TV changes our consciousness when we watch it.
That's pretty sad, but yes, it's true.
It is. Talking to other people.
Okay.
Talking to other people changes our consciousness. Stubbing your toe changes your consciousness. But what about creating your consciously? What about choosing to recreate yourself and how you think and how you perceive the world? And that's what magic is, really.
So magic is not about, we get all these, let's address it. I mean, I remember the first time you and I did an interview, and it happened to come out a little bit right before Halloween, and you thought, well, that's why I was asking you to do the interview. It just happened to fall that way. I mean, there is a perception out there that, you know, Wicca, witchcraft, witches, you know, it's like, what was that, bell book and candle, I'm going to wiggle my nose, or the other, well, that Bewitched.
Was Samantha, but yeah, I can probably name you a lot of the media witches. There's, you know, Kim Novak in Bell Book and Candle, and there's Elizabeth Montgomery in Bewitched, and the young ladies on Charmed, and, you know, they do things that we don't do, you know. They levitate things, and they're
fantasies, they're fiction.
I mean, gee, I wish I could do my housework by wiggling my nose. I still have to actually wash my dishes and things like that.
So magic is the transformation of the perception of self as it relates to the environment and
to spirit.
The spirit, okay.
Now that's high magic, which is also called theurgy. There is a branch of magic called thaumaturgy, which acts on the physical world. Okay, can you influence the weather with magic? Yes. Can you heal using magic? Yes. Can you protect yourself using magic? Yes. Those are all considered low magics, or you might say practical magics.
There's the teenage question that you always get is, can you attract a boyfriend or a girlfriend? And the answer is, yes, you can, but probably not the one you were thinking of.
Well, that goes now, I mean, we're drifting all over the place. Both of you are familiar with quantum physics.
Sure.
So,
well, if anyone is.
Yeah, okay, agreed. There were two basic movies out. One was What the Bleep, which I thought dealt with it in a realistic and, you know, straightforward fashion.
Yeah.
And then the other one was The Secret, which the basic message was, you know, if I got a $4 million mansion on the hill, I'm okay. So,
yeah.
You know, so I mean, what I hear you saying is, we could create, but be careful what you wish for, be careful what you're creating, because it may not be your path, and it may be your best thinking, which is not going to be too good.
Amber has a great story about that, about doing magic for a car. And you got way too specific.
Yes, I wanted a $400 Chrysler product because I had $400 and I liked Chryslers. So I did magic for a $400 Chrysler. Suddenly there were $400 Chryslers everywhere for sale. And I bought one, and the transmission fell out 2 days later. If you ask for something very specific, you may get exactly what you asked for, nothing more, nothing less. If I had asked for reliable transportation, I would have been far better off.
Exactly. But our best thinking, sometimes we don't realize how bad we think our best thinking is.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So we're talking about, and let's segue into, you know, at the root of all this is shamanism, which was a belief that we are integrated and part of our whole environment. And that was, you know, my understanding, I mean, shamanism is the grand religion that's underneath and underpins all the other religions. You know, and so some of the more older ones, like Hinduism, talk about the concept of karma, which we're now talking about as, you know, quantum physics. To me, they're one and the same. What I think, what I feel, what I believe, I create. So Wicca carries that forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wicca is very solidly based on shamanism, which is a slippery term, let's face it, because there are shamanic traditions all over the world, and they're all different.
Yes.
They have some common. But you could say that Wicca is based on the core practices of shamanism, with an overlay of ceremonial magic and other stuff, and British culture and whatever.
What do you see as the core?
The core of shamanism?
Yeah. I mean, because some people are, you know, Carlos Castaneda, the core of shamanism is let's go out and get high on mushrooms or some other psychedelic.
Well, that's one way. I tend to, no criticism to Carlos Castaneda, but I tend to believe that the best way to do that is to use your own brain, because you don't actually need drugs. You need to be really connected with your ability to, and I'm going to use the term visualize, but it doesn't mean that you need to see the stuff. It means you need to sense it somehow. Some people see it, some people hear it, some people smell it, but you need to be able to connect with nature.
And I think connection is the core of shamanism. It's connecting not only with your entire natural world and with your own inner resources, your deep mind, your subconscious, but connecting with other levels of reality that most people ignore because they're not visible and tangible. And if you have those connections among the worlds and can travel between the worlds and travel within your own brain and make use of the resources of nature, then you've got the basics of shamanic skills.
And I mean, I'm just trying to put this in a context that some people understand, because for them I think it's going to sound very strange, but if you look at some traditional religions, if you look at Hinduism, you've got multiple gods for different things. So, you know, Native American spirituality, the spirit of this, the spirit of that.
Sure, animism, pantheism, polytheism.
Well,
And even to get into to Catholicism, I mean, they didn't create these minor gods. What they created was like 3,000 saints who were in charge of every, you know, it's about...
And it's, in my view, it's not that different.
Yeah, exactly.
There are techniques that run through all religions, and it's something that everybody uses meditation. Some people have other names for it, but everybody uses meditation. Saying the rosary is an aid to meditation. It's repetitive phrases over and over again to put you in a trance state.
Well, that goes back to Hinduism and the mala beads.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, they didn't invent them on their own. They just begged, borrowed, and stole whatever sort of suited them.
They're techniques that work, so people are using them.
And I think, spiritually speaking, if you're creating your own personal spiritual path, it makes perfect sense to beg, borrow, or steal anything that works for you.
I agree.
And as long as you do it with respect for the originating culture.
And give them the credit where credit is due.
Sure.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So let's keep running down these terms. From shamanism, we go to pagan. Connect the dots, please.
A pagan, the word means country dweller, and it was a Latin word. And it was the way the Romans referred to those benighted savages who lived out in the villages or the countryside and had not adopted the Roman culture and the Roman religion and so forth. Anyone who held on to their old ways, which is usually a variant of nature religion, those were the pagani, and you could almost call them country bumpkins, you know, or what's another phrase?
Hicks?
Yeah, Hick. It was the Roman term for a hick, because, hey, you don't like Roman baths and you don't worship Jupiter and Minerva, what's wrong with you, you pagan, you?
Yes.
And it's not that they were irreligious, it's just that they maintained their indigenous religious traditions. And that's where we take the term for modern nature religions. We are not pagans in the sense that they were, because we live in a different culture. So some of us use the term neo-pagan. You know, we're doing our best to take the heart and the guts of those pagan spiritual paths and bring it into this century.
You know, I didn't give him a plug because he really deserves it. There's a friend who I've interviewed twice. He's an author. His name is Stephen Maines. And he's written this, it's at least a trilogy. The third book is coming out. The first book is called Longinus, and it deals with, he gets into, Longinus was the Roman guard who was guarding Jesus and speared him in the side that speeded up to death. And he disappears with that spear, and he winds up, you know, with druids and this whole evolution. And Stephen does a wonderful job of dealing with and understanding and explaining that level of paganism and how, you know, the druids worked. And then the next book, I forget, he's going to be upset. I can't remember the name of the other book, but book 2 is out. Maybe it'll come to me.
There are lots of fictional depictions of that kind of thing. The Mists of Avalon is one I happen to like very much.
Book, yes.
Yeah, love it. And there, you know, there are lots of them. And the advantage is, of course, we can't really know, particularly in the case of the Celts, because they didn't leave any written records. When the Druids passed things down orally, and when the last Druid died, he took all that, he or she, I think it was probably a he, took all that rich tradition and all that history with him.
That's the name of the second book. It's Merlin's Druid name.
Taliesin?
No, it also begins with an M, but
Merlin.
Meriden, that's it.
Yeah,
You got
it's
it.
probably pronounced wrong, but
Yeah, that's the Meriden. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, let's go back on, pagan, Wiccan, all of these, there is nothing but an oral tradition. I mean, they were all driven underground millennia ago, practically.
well, with the partial exception of the Norse religionists, the people of the Asatru and the Vanir, the Odinists,
And
they
also,
call themselves heathens, but
not so long ago as you think.
Yeah.
Northern Europe was not converted to Christianity until around the year 1000. So that's, it's not multiple millennia, it's one millennium.
And they left writings behind?
the Icelandic
Yeah.
Eddas and
Yeah.
others, yes, they did. So if you want to have an authentic pagan religion based on something written, then you probably want to go for the Norse religions. Wicca and Druidry and the others are all imaginative recreations of what we think was sort of like or based on what people did when.
So let's use the term Wicca. What does that mean? And you're putting it in the same context as it's another branch of shamanism like Druidism is. So could you want to elaborate a little bit more with that?
Sure. The word itself is from the Anglo-Saxon. It was Witchcraft, and I hope that's pronounced right. But we have a tradition that means the craft of the wise. It may not mean that. We're not certain of that. But in theory, it's based on the idea that there were wise women and cunning men who were the healers, the midwives, the elders in their villages, and that's what they were called. They were called Wicca, which we have modernized into Wicca. And the witches were the people who were the healers and the magic workers and the counselors and the spiritual leaders of Western Europe.
So shamanism, I had a few people who are talking about shamanism. They do the shamanic journey, they do the vision quest and stuff like that. Is that part of the Wicca practice, or is that now something separate from?
It can be. Some people practice what they call shamanic witchcraft, and they combine the two, and some people don't. I don't know how to define myself. I think I'm in flux, but I've always been in flux, so that's nothing new.
Well, yeah. I like that statement because, shouldn't any practice be in flux?
Sure.
It's not like we all of a sudden know everything.
Yeah.
So we need to be in flux. We need to allow ourselves to be open to learn more. More shall be revealed.
Yeah, I have this theory that you can do a ritual twice. Exactly the same one, especially if the first time you did it, something didn't work the way you expected or you had some sort of difficulty. You can do it again. But by the time you've done it the third time, you pretty much sucked all the juice out of it and you're going to go write something else. So.
And you've maybe learned that you shouldn't have expectations.
Maybe, or something else, but I do think it's more vibrant if it's one or the first or possibly the second time you do it.
We could say there's two approaches to religion. One is that capital T truth has been revealed. It's limited, it's written in a book, or it's in the words of a prophet, and that's all there is, and that's all you need to know. And the other approach is that we can never know all that's true, and we can never stop learning, and that it's an ongoing quest or a journey that's going to last lifetimes.
The first scenario, it's in the book and that's all we need to know, to me makes whatever that deity is so small that we have to become smaller in proportion.
Absolutely.
How could a finite mind begin to understand the infinite?
Can't.
Maybe that's why we've got, Wicca is polytheistic in one sense, in that we certainly have, God has or goddess actually has a lot of faces.
Let's talk about that. Is there a deity hierarchy? The different Wicca covens, and maybe we ought to define what a coven is, have different deities? Is that free to do their own, or what?
Well, a lot of Wiccan groups focus on Celtic deities because we came out of a Celtic culture in old Europe. And so those are kind of favorites. And probably the big two favorite are the horned god of the hunt and of wildlife and the wilderness, and the moon goddess, who is in her different phases, maiden, mother, and crone. Just about as popular, though, is Mother Earth, Gaia, and the green man, who is the god of all green things, of vegetation. Beyond that, any deity that can be identified or conceptualized is fair game for Wiccan ritual or practice. Okay?
Well, let me back this up for a second. You're talking about Celtic, and Gaia is a Greek term, if I am not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gaia is a Greek goddess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Earth Mother concept is worldwide.
Worldwide.
Yeah.
And that happens to be the name we hang on that concept in this culture, because, you know, our language and so forth and our culture has a lot of Greek or Greco-Roman roots.
So did the embracing of Gaia predate Lovejoy, or did it come after Lovejoy, or he wasn't even a factor?
You mean the scientist who came up with the
Gaia theory?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
think he
previous.
was kind of embarrassed by the whole thing. From what I've read. He was somebody, that was an idea he came up with, and he named it that, you know, and if people aren't familiar with the concept, it means that all of the life on Earth is basically interwoven, it's a single organism, and it's interrelated.
And self-regulating.
Yeah.
Well, he was a NASA scientist,
Yeah.
and when they were out there exploring, you know, looking for extraterrestrial life, he was part of the team that was told to go define life. And the more this team defined life, the more he came to this belief that Earth
Yeah.
was a living organism.
And
And
a
I-
whole bunch of pagans and other strange people jumped on that and said, of course.
Because
And-
he was a scientist, and
that
now
was
it gave it...
that was the part that made him uncomfortable. He had come up with this idea, which had spiritual and really transcendent implications, and he didn't own that part of it, but the idea was still his, and the basic concept, and the fact that he wasn't able to carry it to its logical conclusion himself is kind of irrelevant, in my opinion.
What do you see as the logical conclusion?
Well, the logical conclusion is that he's right, that all life on Earth is interconnected and one self-regulating organism, and that...
And that organism is, in some sense,
Yeah.
intelligent and inspirited. And I think that's the point at which he kind of went, well, hold on. But for
Whoa.
pagans, that makes perfect sense, that it's not just a mindless organism, but it's an organism that has purpose and meaning and
It has
spiritual significance.
an ongoing intelligence
Yeah.
that's greater than we could possibly understand.
Indeed.
So
It also means that we're only part of that organism as human beings, and there are a lot of, you know, traditional belief systems that really wants to see man up at this pinnacle, when actually man is simply part of the whole.
well, again, that goes back to the Roman Catholic. Not even,
They're not
wasn't
the only
belief.
ones.
They enforced it that, you know, Earth is the center of the universe, and that the sun revolves around the Earth does not revolve around the sun. We needed to be it, you know.
Well, they did
And there are
finally
people-
excommunicate Galileo, but you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
that was been in my lifetime. So
And there are people that say the Gaia theory is probably accurate as long as you accept that humanity is the brain and nervous system of Gaia. And I've got to say, if humanity is the brain of Gaia, then Gaia is brain damaged.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that, you know, we are those microorganisms that infect the planet. I mean, my belief is that it is a living organism, and that all these tsunamis, all these earthquakes, volcanic eruptions are all a reflection of the poisonous effect that our presence is having on this planet. And it's a means of cleansing itself.
before I say this, I want to say that I absolutely support the ecology movement and all of that stuff, and it's a big part of our spiritual beliefs and our practice. However, when people get all worked up about how we have to save the earth, it's not a complete understanding in my view, because the earth has been through 3 or 4 extinction events already. If we have another one due to our own carelessness, stupidity, whatever you want to call it, the Earth will still be here and we will be replaced,
Yes.
just as the dinosaurs were replaced.
Do either one of you ever read the book Voice of the Planet? I know it became a movie or it was a multi-part, like what the KNME public TV series.
No, I don't think so.
Faye Dunaway was the voice of the planet.
Huh.
And she talked about that. I mean, I forget who wrote the book. This was long, it was 70s, maybe early 80s at the latest.
Yeah.
And it was about what you were saying, that species are constantly dying on this planet. New species are coming into being. The planet will live. It's just human beings may not live on this planet if they don't get their act together.
That's right.
And I think as a species, we have a right to self-determination, and if we want to commit species suicide, I don't favor it, but if some people want to, they have that right. But I do have an ethical issue with the idea of taking hundreds or thousands of other species with us, poisoning the planet to the degree that we lose, wolves and condors and so forth. I think that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
But that's our lesson. I mean, again, we talked a little bit before the show about ego, and it's about, I am the shepherd. That doesn't mean I could do with it as I wish. I mean, it's about me having a responsibility to the other life forms.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm here to, I forget how the exact saying goes, but I'm basically here to provide, it's a Native American saying, but it's like, I'm just entrusted to pass this on to the next generation. It's
The
not
Earth
mine
does not belong to us, we belong to the Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the phrase you were thinking
But
of, but that's what came up.
Yeah, and it's close to it. It's just about, we're not here to do with it as we wish. So, I mean, all of this comes bundled into the core beliefs of the Wiccan practice.
Yes. Whether you are, say, a Christian and believe that humanity is stewards of God's creation, or whether you are Wiccan and believe that creation itself is sacred, and we are a semi-intelligent part of that creation with a responsibility toward it.
Very semi.
Yeah, it's not really that far apart. In either case, you're basically saying the world and nature are sacred either as God's creation or in and of themselves, and we need to take care. We need to assume responsibility.
Does Wicca encompass a creation mythology, so to speak?
Oh, we create them from time to time. We make up stories that, like all myths, embody truths for us, but we don't have since we don't have a scripture, we don't have a official standard creation myth.
I think most mythologies have a creation myth, and we use a lot of them from time to time. Most of them have to do with the goddess existed first and gave birth to the god, and they created the world. That kind of...
Which is a Taoist sort of approach.
Yeah.
In the beginning was the Tao, and then there was the yin and the yang, and from the yin and the yang came the 10,000 things. So, that's real compatible with a lot of Wiccans' beliefs.
Well, I think Tao is the oldest existing practice that connects back to shamanism. That and Native Americans. I mean, I see a lot of parallels in the two of them, and I see them with roots deeply into shamanism.
I took a shamanism class at Ardentane recently, and one of the teachers was a Pawnee physicist. Yeah, that's right. And he's also studies the Tao and some Eastern beliefs, as well as his Native American practice.
Yeah, how crazy is it to have all these religions all over the world and not, find spiritual insight in all of them? I mean, there's this huge spiritual smorgasbord out there, and to choose one little aisle in the supermarket and say, all my truth's going to come from here, that makes no sense.
Well, there's a lot of literature out there. The one that pops into mind first is Aldous Huxley's The Perennial Philosophy, which is basically there are 7 basic truths that each religion teaches. They're at the core, and then they just go off on their own for rituals and dogma, but they're all teaching the same thing. We're having so much fun. Time is flying by so fast. I know we want to, yeah, right? That's why I got this here to keep track of. So we'll pick up some of these other topics, but I know we set this up and we want to talk about
Yeah.
it. So Rowan, do you want to talk about the individual pieces, what
Sure,
they
I do.
represent, and then you're going to do a little ceremony, and you're going to do a description behind the ceremony, and I'm going to sit back and observe and keep quiet.
Yeah. What I wanted to say is that this is an altar that somebody might use to work on their own, and people do work on their own and also in groups. And essentially it's a workbench. So these are the tools that are laid out. The most important tools are what we call lamps of art. These are 2 candles. They're essentially light to see by. We tend to like to use candlelight. And there's an object for each one of the 4 directions. The feather is for air. And we've got a red candle back here for fire. Because I'm in a TV studio, I can't light it, but that's what it's for. There's a chalice, which has some water in it, and it's for the element of water. And this is actually a sand dollar, and oddly enough, it doesn't stand for water, it stands for earth. And the reason it does is because usually on a Wiccan altar, you'll have a 5-pointed star on a circle. And we also tend to like to use found objects. So this little sand dollar is my pentacle. Most of the time, if you have a group ritual, the pentacle will be a little bit bigger. We've got a little bowl of water and a little container of salt that I'm going to use later to purify the circle. And we've got a goddess symbol, and this is a representation of the Venus of Willendorf, and a god symbol. And the one I'm happening to use today is Ganesh, which is a Hindu god, and this is a general European symbol. And you know, we often mix things like that. And if those are the 2 that speak to you on the day, those are the 2 that you would put out. And we've got this little guy here that's part of our individual practice at Our Lady of the Woods. He's called a coyote. And we put him on the altar to invite his energy as the trickster and try and control it, to keep the priestess from setting her hair on fire, or you know, any one of the hundreds of little mishaps that can happen when you're doing a ritual.
Ask a quick question. Again, in basic shamanism, you have, quote, the power animal. Is the coyote the collective power animal of the coven?
No.
Okay.
It's actually a symbol for us of sort of the
It's more
randomness
of a chaos symbol, you might
Yeah.
say. Creative chaos that is there whether we invite it or not, so we may as well honor it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it makes a difference, I've got to tell you. I've gone to a couple of rituals where I forgot to put out the coyote, and we had one time when one of the members of the group, actually, we were outdoors, fortunately, and she picked up some sticks and made one because she figured if anything else went wrong, things were just not going to go well. And I don't know why that is, but I do know that it is. So I'm going to go ahead, Amber's got a reading to do, and I'm going to just sit on the floor in front of the altar, which is what I would do if I were doing this by myself.
And what Rowan is going to do, but silently, usually there are words with her part of this ritual. Silently, she is going to create sacred space, create a boundary, invite the 4 elements of earth and air, fire and water, invite the feminine spiritual energy as represented by the Willendorf goddess, invite the masculine spiritual energy as represented today by Ganesh. And while she is doing that, I'm going to do a reading here.
Can I interrupt just for a quick second? Is there anything that the people watching can do in their home right now as a participation?
Yes, if they would like to. The purpose of this ritual is going to be to connect with and bless Gaia, the earth. And if people just want to think about an earth with a healthy biosphere and ecosystems that are functioning properly, and a humanity that has learned how to live in harmony, envision a planet where we all live and without destruction of one another.
Okay.
And if you want to envision that, that helps the energy. So great. And today, the Willendorf figure is going to represent Gaia, the Earth Mother. And Ganesh is here partly because he is a remover of obstacles. And there are many obstacles to having a human culture that lives in harmony with Gaia. So we're invoking his aid to help remove some of those obstacles and bring us to a better relationship with our planet. This is called the charge of the Earth Mother. It's a reflection, in a way, of the charge of the goddess, which is part of the very, very little liturgy that we have in Wicca. We have almost no written holy works, but so we create them, and this is one that's been created. Feel the presence of the Earth Mother, the great shining jewel of life, who floats among the stars in splendid robes of azure and emerald and white, who of old and yet today is called by many names: Anath, Bonadea, Demeter, Gaia, Gerda, Nokomis, Papa Nuatuku, Tellus Mater, Ukimachi, Yolkai Essan, and by many other names in many cultures. She speaks to us in the rustling of the leaves, the splash of the ocean surf, the sounds of rain upon the soil, and in the stillness of the world as the sun sets in brilliance and twilight softly envelops the land. Most of all, she speaks to us in stillness. Could she speak in the language of our people, these might be her words. I am the thrusting snow-clad peaks and the moist and verdant valleys dreaming in the silver mist. I am the vast and wind-swept grasslands and the silent dark abysses beneath the storm-wild seas. I am the towers of rusty rock that touch the azure sky, and the cool cavern depths, waiting in blackness through endless eons. I am the earth. I am the heart and soul and body of every creature that walks or crawls or runs upon my breast, or swims my lakes and streams and seas, or cleaves the earth in soaring flight above my hills and plains. My song is in the voices of every living thing, and my dance is in their moving. I am the life of earth. I am the whole of which you are a tiny part, as I am, in turn, part of the greater circle. I am your birthplace and playground and field of battle. I am your sweet homestead and blossoming garden, your beckoning road and far horizon and waiting tomb. Every atom of your body comes from me and is of my essence, and shall return to me in the fullness of time. I am the sphere within the all, and I am you. By the authority inherent in my being, by the powers of tempest and tsunami, of wildfire and avalanche, I lay this charge upon you. For your sake, and the sake of your children, and generations yet unborn, you shall do these things. Keep great habitats free and in touch for the wildings, whose existence is entwined with yours. Use the energy from sun and wind, and sea and wood. Keep my seas and skies and soil cleansed and free of poisons. Live simply, mindful how your way of living touches the beings all about you. Honor me, love me, and in return I give you life. This bond between us, the sacred promise given self to self, is sealed in blood, your blood, which is created of my seawater and red iron. Let the pact endure always, and so shall we all endure. Break the pact, and my love shall heal the wound and offer the promise anew. Break it again, and wounded I shall love you still, yet can give you less. Break it one time too many, and you seal the hour of your doom. Come, let us embrace life together, and all shall blessed be. For I am your mother and your home and the circle of your lives, now and forever.
I pledge my intellect and imagination to protect the earth. I pledge my energy and my will to protect the earth. I pledge all my emotions and imagination to protect the earth. I pledge my physical resources to protect the earth. And finally, I honor the earth as my mother and pledge to protect her.
So mote it be.
So mote it be.
So that's a little ritual, and I hope the folks who are watching and participating enjoyed that. And thank you for your energies to protect our mother, Gaia.
Well, that was a beautiful ritual. Let me ask a number of questions. I mean, what is the origins of the ritual? You were saying in the reading, we don't have any really scriptures, so how does this evolve? How did this come to be?
Well, I wrote the written part, okay?
Okay.
Loosely based on the Charge of the Goddess, which is one of our favorite pieces of literature. And the structure of the ritual, which was not done out loud but done silently, that comes pretty much from Western ceremonial magic, okay? Creating the sacred space, calling upon the four elements, recognizing goddess and God. That's
in Hindu culture, they have 5 elements. The fifth one, well, that's a little bit different, but they have the ether. Is that the representation of the god? I mean, to take the 4, then that adds the fifth one in?
Spirit, ether.
Yes.
Actually, the 5 points of the pentagram represent the 5 elements and spirit, which is, the top point is spirit.
Okay. So many questions in so little time. Let's talk about, because I want to bounce to, you have a teaching college.
Yeah, we do.
And the question then, well, twofold becomes, if there are no books, what gets taught?
Well, I won't say there are no books. There is no single sacred scripture.
Okay, that's what I meant, yes.
But the good news is, instead of one holy book, we have the whole library full.
Okay.
And you can draw spiritual wisdom from many, many, many sources, and certainly everyone who's ever written a good book, there's something to be learned from it. I have to say that our main teacher, for me anyway, is nature. And I learn most of the important things of my life either from nature or from my interaction with other people. But books are up there pretty high too.
So what does a curriculum look like? I mean, how much time is committed to, and what does it lead you to?
Okay. The time is mostly weekend classes, because most of the people who attend our programs are working adults, so most of our classes are on weekends or evenings. And we have 6 basic areas where you can earn a certificate. And they are healing arts, shamanic studies, pagan spirituality, pagan leadership, sacred living, and shamanic studies.
No, you said that already. Magic and witchcraft
I'm
is what
sorry.
you left out.
Forgive me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
She is the dean of the Magic and Witchcraft School. So there's 6 general areas, and we encourage people to mix and match and to choose the classes from whatever area fits their spiritual path.
Ardentane isn't an accredited college, mostly because there's no organization of Wiccan colleges. I think there are maybe a handful in the country, maybe. I know of 2.
Yeah.
Basically, there's no organization to offer accreditation, but we do offer certificate programs in each one of those 6 disciplines. Sorry.
So you have a title of High Priestess, you have a title of Priestess, how does that tie into it? Does it tie into the college itself? I mean, do I have to have 4 out of 6 to be one and 6 out of 6 to be the other? How does that structure work?
It's a separate thing.
Okay.
The priestess training program within our coven is different from the training program at the school. And certainly at the school you can learn all the skills you need to be a priest or a priestess. The one thing the school does not do is provide initiation, which is a very personal thing and done within covens usually.
Let's take we never got to that term. Let's define coven.
A coven is a group of witches who gather together to celebrate their spiritual path and to learn and to enjoy each other's company.
And I don't want to keep bouncing around with terms here, but I mean, in this culture, witches tend to be singularly gendered. Is that true within
Now, my partner is a guy, and he's a witch, and witches are men and women. Witchcraft, Wicca is like most religions in that the practitioners tend to be about 2/3 female. But most religious congregations are about that ratio.
You know, when we were talking about, the concept or the image of witches, all of them basically are,
you can kind of tell if it's
feminine, so to speak.
you can kind of tell if they're serious, because if they start referring to the male witches as warlocks, then you know the person has not done their research, because that's a term that's used in the community and it means traitor. It means somebody who's broken the secrets.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say the guys in the craft, the men of Wicca are really extraordinary. For one thing, they have to be able to deal with strong women, because none of us are going to take a back seat in our spiritual practice, so they've got to be willing to work as equals, and they are. And some of the archetypes and the what's the word I want? Role models in Wicca for men are amazing, like the Horned God, Herne the Hunter, or Apollo, or some of those gods are wonderful spiritual role models for men.
So how does one become, what is the progression from a witch to a priestess to a high priestess? Am I mixing up terms, or? Not
really. They're tradition specific.
Okay.
I can tell you what our tradition does, but I can't tell you what another tradition does, okay? We have a 3-degree initiation system, and you begin as a student or dedicant. And the first degree of initiation to priest or priestess to yourself.
You take responsibility for your own spiritual growth, basically.
Okay.
And then the second degree is priest or priestess to others. And the third is priest or priestess to community, which basically says at that point you're willing to minister to a group if you want to. And for example, we talked about the size of a coven, and the traditional size is 13 people. We've been as many as 17, and we found that to be unworkable. And at that point, you'll often, I think we did split, and at that point, I know we've hived a couple of times.
Does the coven bestow the title, or is it self-bestowed?
Yes.
Within a coven, yes.
Both, okay.
Within a coven, the title is bestowed by a ceremony in the coven. If you are working on your own as a solitary, then you don't have anyone to bestow the title. And there are people who self-initiate and declare, I am a Wiccan priestess, for example. And if they know their stuff and are doing the work, that's okay. They don't have to have a rubber stamp.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is in the coven, we really don't tend to do the ceremony unless the person can come to us and say, I've had an initiatory experience of some kind.
Okay. We're going to be running out of time soon, so I want to make a couple of quick announcements. Then I'm going to throw it back out to the two of you to let people, they've been given contact information, but I think You know, that you talked about a holiday coming up, and I guess it's an open participation. People
Yeah.
can come.
We
so we can
actually
let them know about that.
There are 8 Wiccan holidays throughout the year. There's one about every 6 weeks, and we always have open ceremonies. And you can find out about that on our website, which is www.ladywoods.org, or I think they're in the Santa Fe New Mexican. They're announced in the New Mexican as well. The next one is on the 21st. It's the spring equinox, and we're going to be meeting at Overlook Park in White Rock at 6:45 a.m. And that's right, I said a.m. because traditionally on the spring equinox we drum up the sun. And I'm an early riser, so it's one of my favorite Sabbats of the year. There are many other people who are not as fond of it, but it's really, I think it's probably a fairly. I just like doing it because we always go out there and drum up the sun, and then we go someplace warm and have a hot breakfast.
If the sun comes up on that day, thank the witches.
That's it. Yes.
Joke.
I was going to say, if it doesn't come up, should we blame you?
No. There've been a couple of times when it's been cloudy where we sort of had to declare, it's up, it's okay, we can, it's light, even if we can't see the sun. But the view from the overlook is really spectacular, so we enjoy doing that.
I'm going to come back to you for some parting thoughts. Let me just make a couple of quick announcements. First off, want to let everybody know, my information has also been shown on the screen. Feel free to contact me. Next week we're going to have a guest. His name is Jim Martinez, and we're going to talk about the Bible, the Gospels, what they mean and what they don't mean, and what they're teaching and what we're not following. Jim was watching the show and decided that he liked what he was hearing and wanted to see if he can contribute. We met, and he's becoming a guest. So, I mean, this is community TV, and you're all welcome to be a part of it. I'm specifically looking for somebody who'd like to share an hour with me talking about Edgar Cayce, but if you have other thoughts about other shows you'd like to be a part of or you'd like to see, contact me. Also, I am a counselor. I incorporate spirituality with some traditional therapeutic elements, and I call it spiritual counseling. My information is on the screen. Feel free to contact me. I work on donation basis, work on all aspects of life on life's terms. So if you think that applications of spirituality could help you, give me a call. I'd love to talk to you. Mm-hmm. So, parting thoughts.
I want to talk about the goddess retreat that's coming up at Ardentane, because we're actually both involved in it, and it's April 2nd through the 4th, which I understand is Easter weekend, but a lot of people either don't celebrate Easter or don't have family in the area. And if you're interested in working with goddess spirituality in any way, I will say that the retreat is only open to women.
Yes.
If we ever do a God retreat, that will only be open to men, probably. And
interesting.
Yeah, we're going to leave some literature about it around town, and we do have information about it on the website.
Yep.
And you can register on the web and pay, because there is a small fee on the web. And I hope people that are interested in that will come. And if you are not interested in that, go and look at some of the other classes on the Ardentane website. There are all kinds of things.
Yep. And I would offer this final thought, that very often we get our religious and spiritual teachings from holy books, from teachers, from religious leaders, basically from other human beings. In our path, a lot of what we learn spiritually comes from nature, from the planet Earth, from Gaia, from being sensitive and open, listening and watching what happens around us. And if we do that, we can learn a great deal from the planet we live on. And perhaps we can learn an extremely important lesson, which is how to live in harmony with the rest of the life on this planet.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
I need to cut you off. Time to wrap it up. I thank you both. It's been a pleasure having you. Maybe we'll get you both back again.
Sure.
I want to thank you all for listening. Our topic was a vision of what could be. That vision starts with you. Go within, look for that vision, and then make it happen. You've got the power. Love and light to you all. Blessings. I'm Reverend Phil, and I've been your host for Words of the Prophets. Thank you for tuning in. Please join me again next week, same time, same channel, for more Words of the Prophets.